Shaheen Holloway is building at Seton Hall. Man was at a fun team last year. The Big East and Seton Hall got screwed, not getting that at large. But Shaheen Holloway gets his guys up. They go in the NIT. Things are good until, your best player goes to St. John's and you lose some other key pieces. So Christian, Nick, here with Jerry Carino, who covers Seton Hall for the Asbury Park Press. Jerry, great having you here. Tell us, how is Seton Hall, the program, and the fan base reacting to, the ups and downs of March in the aftermath from last season?
Well, it seems like a million years ago, guys, because most of the team's gone. So of course, first of all, everyone was super disappointed not making the NCAA tournament. To be on the bubble like that and have it burst, after winning 13 Big East games, unprecedented for a 13-win Big East team not to make the big dance. So there was some shock and disappointment there. And then, like many fan bases with the NIT, there was a whole feeling of, hey, it's only the NIT, who cares? But as Seton Hall started to really catch fire in the NIT, and plus they were playing on their home, in their gym on their campus, which they don't normally play in, 2,000-seat gym. So people got really excited for the team. And then to win the NIT wound up being a big deal. The game against Indiana State was phenomenal. There was a huge viewership for the game. Seton Hall fans were really into it. They threw they had a giant reception, a homecoming reception for the team. So people were stoked to win 25 games and hang a banner. But then the whole team left, basically. A couple of the guys were out of eligibility, but they lost 3 starters. Well, they lost their 2 best players probably to the transfer portal, and then almost their entire bench. So there was a lot of shock over that. And then they started putting together a team of pieces that most people don't know who these guys are. So when you combine that with the fact that they haven't had any, there's been very little word out of the program. Like no one has seen their practice, including me. There's a lot of mystery, I think, surrounding this team. So you went from the disappointment of the bubble bursting to the high of winning a title to the low of watching everybody bolt, including your point guard for St. John's, for crying out loud, the rival across the river, to this new team being assembled, the curiosity factor, to complete mystery about what this team is. And so you mentioned maybe roller coaster. That's the roller coaster.
Well, let's talk about the personnel a little bit and the interconference transfer you guys got. Garway Dual for Providence. This is someone I'm really high on. He's going to be a sophomore. There's some NBA buzz there. I saw he gained 15 pounds of muscle in the offseason, which is huge for him. He was 28% from 3 last season, 28% on jump shots. So I think his shooting will definitely get better this season. But what can we expect from him year 1 at Seton Hall?
Hard to say because he was very touted coming out of high school, but it seems like he was a bad fit at Providence, right? Because he committed to play for Ed Cooley there and then found himself with a new coach. Didn't seem to be on the same page. Just from afar, that was my read. They didn't seem to be on the same page. He didn't really contribute much. He had his moments, but mostly didn't contribute a whole lot. I think it was underwhelming. As a freshman, the guy's got a lot of talent. He's big. I know they were very happy to get him. And Holloway, Holloway's specialty as a coach is developing point guards, right? He was a great point guard. He was a McDonald's All-American. He was an All-Big East point guard at Seton Hall. Kadari Richmond, who, like Dual, had a lot of talent coming out of high school, similar size, etc. Richmond really didn't find his way under Jim Boeheim, and then even Kevin Willard. And it took 2 years with Shaheen Holloway to sort of polish the gem, right, and bring out the great player in Richmond. Richmond is now an elite college point guard largely because of his work with Shaheen Holloway. So the hopes for Dual is that he'll be somewhat along those lines. Can Holloway do that in 1 year? It took him 2 years with Richmond, 2 full years to get Richmond to really, use all that talent that he has. I don't know how much they can get out of Dual in 1 year. He'll definitely be better. But does anyone stay 2 years now? Could you even talk about next year? No, of course not. Not with the transfer portal. So to answer your question, I think there's optimism about what Shaw can do with Garway, but there's, you just don't know. It's a process with Shaw. Like he's very deliberate in the way he develops these guys. So he'll be better for sure. Will he be a star point guard running the show, leading a team to 20 plus wins? That's the upside for him, but can it come this year? I don't know. Again, I haven't seen these guys practice, which is really unusual at this point. But the hopes for him, from what I can tell, are high. Where is he at in the process? I think he probably a ways to go before you get what you think you can get out of him.
I know he's 6'4", or 6'5". He's in that mold of a lot of last year was we're gonna defend our asses off, and then offensively sometimes it's gonna be a little clunky without a lot of outside shooting. But guess what? We have Kadari Richmond, Jerry Davis who can go get them one. They can get in the paint and get themselves a look like almost at will. Like there were games where it was just over and over again. Like let's just ride our guys. And like Garway's, he didn't show us at Providence that he has that, but I mean when you look at this roster, I think for this team to be good, like they need him to take a huge step because you look at the guys they're bringing in. We know what Adewusu is. Isaiah Coleman could take a step. Prince Aligbe had some buzz heading to Boston College, but didn't do a whole lot there. Toomey comes from Evansville. Jenkins comes from Old Dominion. Zion Harmon from Bethune-Cookman. Scotty Middleton didn't play much at Ohio State, but there's some talent here in some guys who are proven contributors at the lower level. How do you expect this starting five to round out? Because there are really a lot of question marks.
I would say I don't know if there's a starting five right now so much as a 10-man rotation. Holloway's going to play 10. So last year he only played really 6.5, 7 guys tops because beyond 7 guys, the guys couldn't play. There just was no Big East talent but beyond 7. They had no depth. And so Holloway hated playing like that. I hated it with a passion. Hated having to play Richmond as good as Richmond, Dre Davis, and Al Dawes were. He did not like having to play them 35 minutes a game. What he wants to do is, and if you remember his team at St. Peter's, that team was 10 guys. It was interchangeable parts. It was a lot of mass substitutions, fresh legs in the defensive end, versatility, and you couldn't shut down one guy. Again, opposing defense couldn't shut down one guy of St. Peter's and expect to do well. There were any number of guys who could beat you. And I think that's what Holloway envisions. Like his big thing is I want three playmaking guards on the court. Last year he had, 1 or 2 at times. So it's more of, can I get 10 guys? And can I get 10 guys fighting for 5 spots? Can I get 10 guys agreeing to play 20-something minutes apiece rather than 5 guys playing 30-plus minutes? I don't know. That's a lot because at St. Peter's you could do it, no problem, because those 10 guys were not blue-chip guys. They were not guys who expected to go to the NBA. They were not guys with handlers and people whispering in their ear. They were not guys who were trying to break the bank in the spring with an NIL deal. So those guys would play their 18, 20 minutes. They do their role. They'd play their butt off or whatever that was asked of them. And when it came time to sub out for another guy, there was no problem. I don't know how well that philosophy will transfer to this stage at this time with these players. Nobody knows, but I know Holloway's going to try. He's going to try to play 10. I don't know who the starting 5 is going to be. I don't think Holloway knows. I would expect that Dual's the point guard. Who else would be their main point guard? But it's hard to say. And so I think you're going to see battles for position. I think you're going to see the 10th guy play as many minutes as the 3rd guy. And who's on the court at the end of the game might be strictly situational or coach's feel. I know that's hard to process right now, and we'll have to see how it plays out. But that's going to be the mindset going into the season with this group.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this roster up and down, and the size and length it jumps out at you because besides Zion Harmon, everyone's 6'4" and up. Shaheen Holloway's been a great defensive coach, as everyone knows. 20th last season and 33rd the season prior. And like you said, you mentioned they only played 7 guys last season.
Right.
So with that depth, the defense should get only better. How do you think, as a coach, because his offense has never been, beautiful and pretty. They never executed amazingly. Like Chris had mentioned, they just kind of gave it to Kadar down the shot clock with Dre Davis to say, go get us a bucket. How does he improve this season with this group overall on offense?
So Holloway doesn't really prioritize offense. Well, he doesn't really prioritize shooting, I don't think, in his recruitment. And also, he really kind of can't. Yeah. I mean, you guys know how expensive shooters are in the portal. Seton Hall doesn't have that money. And so it's kind of with Seton Hall's lack of resources, and maybe relative to their peers, almost in a way it plays in. Of course, would he love to have shooters? Probably, but it kind of plays into his philosophy in a way. Is I want to get gritty guys who play hard and are good defensively, long, like you said. That's a big part of good defense is being long in the backcourt and the perimeter, and in the wings rather. So that's continued to be his philosophy, and I'll coach them up. I'll coach them up offensively to get good shots and play together. But you have what you have offensively, right? And so he's never really had a ton of great offensive arsenal type of guys. Dawes was a good shooter. Also, he had a long-standing relationship with Alamir Dawes. I mean, Dawes' godfather is Holloway's best friend, so that helped, bring him home from Clemson. So I don't know. I don't know how much better they're going to be offensively than last year. I don't know if they will be. I think the idea will be, can this group be even better defensively than last year's was? Can they rebound better? Oh, they rebounded pretty well last year. Can they wear opponents down better? I don't know that there's an expectation that they're going to be better offensively. So to your point, who's going to be at the end of the shot clock? Go get us a bucket when Dawes, Davis, and Richmond could do that last year. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I also don't know exactly what they're going to do inside, although they are long in the perimeter, as you noted, in the backcourt, with the exception of Harmon. And that was part of the recruiting philosophy, is to get guys who with long arms who could defend well that way. Don't know exactly what they're going to have inside. Like last year, Jaden Bediako came out of nowhere. No one knew he was going to be anywhere near that good. And suddenly there was this guy who defended great, who hedged really well on the pick and roll defense, who was a tremendous offensive rebounder, who never took a shot outside the paint, which is what Holloway wants from his center. He wants his center just to shoot at point blank range. He doesn't want a guy drifting out and taking jump shots. So he came out of nowhere. Like if you and I had this conversation last year, I would have said, I don't know. I have no idea. Expectations are low for Jaden Bediako. And there he was. He was a huge piece to their 25 wins. Is there that guy on this roster? It's hard to say. Toomey from Evansville, they love the way he's skilled. Super skilled. Is there enough meat on him? Is he big enough to play center in the Big East on defense? He looks more like a face-up four to me, the way he's built, right? Bediako looked like a man, like he looked like a Big East center. I don't know. They're going to play Toomey because he has offensive skill set, right? Gus Yalden has offensive skill set, but he hasn't played in 2 years, and like he doesn't look like that Big East. Like he's a big guy. There's a lot of him, but he doesn't look like that Big East brick wall type center that you need, that Bediako was that you need at this level. He doesn't really look like that. So the guy from Louisville, Okafor, he looks like that. He has the look. He has the look of a Big East center, but he has not played hardly. Louisville was terrible last year, and he couldn't get on the court. So I don't know. There's a lot of question marks inside. There's a lot of question marks about the fit. This group's going to play hard and play good defense. But to answer your question, will they be better offensively? I can't expect that on paper, and I got to see more. But I think probably not. I think last year's team was probably going to be better offensively, and that team wasn't great. Like Seton Hall is going to be what it is. They're going to have to win games by grinding people down.
I want to give Shaheen his flowers. We have during this call, of course, but just some crazy stats when you look at his coaching resume. His first year at St. Peter's, yes, they went 10-22 in the MAC, and 316th in KenPom. They were number one in block rate in the country in his first season. Okay, his second season, his team was 10th in offensive rebounding percentage. His third season at St. Peter's and his fourth season at St. Peter's, they were top 10 in effective field goal percentage defense, number one in 2-point percentage defense his second year, and second in block rate again. And then last year, he has the 20th best defense, 2023, 33rd, and was also 22nd in offensive rebounding percentage. A lot of that was Bediako. I guess what I'm getting at is like he has such an identity to the way he coaches, and like every year they're not going to be the lead offensive rebounding team, but like that's something that's in his bag. But just the rim protection, the 2-point percentage defense weren't as good the last 2 years, but his guys are going to play so hard. And a lot of these teams, when we do these calls and we're asking about a guy leaving, it's like, in a way, who's replacing it? But I love the way you're framing it of you're not replacing Kadari Richmond in these. Like right. That's just not what's happening in Seton Hall. Like we're going to do it by committee, but he's going back to his roots of what got him this job in the first place. It's 10 guys, and it could be this guy that night, it could be that guy the other night, but what's going to be there every night is the defense and the energy, and that's what's going to make this team difficult to play. And even though you look at this roster and it's like, who are some of these guys? And there's so many good teams in the Big East, and like the basement's going to be better. DePaul and Georgetown will be better.
You would think,
but it's like this team won 10 games his first year in the Big East and 13 games last year. It's hard to think that Seton Hall is not going to be right in the thick of things in the Big East just because of what he does as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, he's an excellent coach, and the results speak for themselves. I mean, tell me any other coach in the country who could have taken St. Peter's roster and made an Elite Eight. And I know a little bit of that was lightning in a bottle. I saw that team play, though, throughout that season. That was a good team. They got a little hot shooting the ball against Kentucky. That was a really good team. I don't know that given St. Peter's, I don't know if you guys have ever been to that place. I mean, it's like a high school gym. You know, they have probably less resources than some high schools. St. Peter's, they're better now. They've built back, rebuilt a little bit, but since they got to the Elite Eight. But I don't know how many coaches, if any, could have, you know, maybe like a young Rick Pitino, right? Like he was that kind of guy with no resources to take St. Peter's that far. So Holloway's a superb coach, and so he does have an identity. Personally, I don't think he was as bothered by the guys who left as the fan base was. Like, I'm not saying that he didn't like those guys. He loved Dre Davis, loved him. I mean, loved him personally, loved the way he played. Dre was his type of guy, but I think he understood why he left. And with Richmond, Shaw worked hard to mold him into this elite player. But I think if you ask Holloway, like he would rather have 10 guys he could count on to play his way than have 6 guys and no reinforcement. I think he would rather have this than what he had last year. Now, will that translate into more wins? Those guys were pretty good players. Will he be saying that in midseason after a 3-game losing streak when no one can put the ball in the bucket as the shot clock's winding down? I don't know. But knowing Shaw well, and I've known him since he was an assistant under Kevin Willard. You know, he came over in 2010 at Seton Hall for 8 years before he went to St. Peter's. And, of course, he was a player. He's got longstanding roots with the program, as do I. And so I really think he'd rather have this than what he had last year. I think he would rather coach this way. I think he'd rather have 10 guys with less expectations for minutes, for shot count, etc., that he could completely mold like a mound of clay rather than having to work with shorthanded and these superstar type guys. So will that translate into more wins or success? I can't say. It's hard to say right now. I'm gonna again go to the 2-year thing, okay? And I know it's almost impossible to do that now. But I think what he's doing is, he's trying to replicate what he did at St. Peter's on a bigger scale. Like those guys were together for 3 years. And the third year, you saw what they were, right? Now, these guys, there's no way he's keeping this team together for 3 years. Nobody is keeping any team together for 3 years right now. But I think if Holloway, what he's thinking is, if I could keep this core of this group together for 2 years, that next year we can be really good. Once they're fully bought in, once I've gotten them to turn the corner the way I got Kadari Richmond and Dre Davis to turn the corner and buy in. If I can do that with these guys, then we can be really good next year. That's a big gamble now. That's a big bet you're placing, a big wager you're placing, because who knows what's going to happen when the free agency curtain goes up in the spring. But this year, I don't know how good the team's going to be, but as you said, this team's going to play its ass off. This team's going to have depth. They're going to defend really well, and they're going to play super hard. And that's, if you don't do that for Holloway, you're out. So that's what you're going to see for sure. The offensive piece, how much will they share the game offensively? Like when you're not as talented individually, you got to share the game offensively. That St. Peter's did. Can he get these guys to do that this year? I don't know. That's sort of the big X factor. But yeah, as you said, it's hard to envision Seton Hall with this coach and some decent personnel having a losing season. Like it just doesn't happen under this guy. And that's why Holloway's so good. But it's hard for me to say how good can they be when there's so much unknown. But yes, the one given is they'll defend well and they'll play their butt off and probably rebound pretty well too.
Nick, you got a question?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything. I had written down maybe shooting may be an issue, but I mean, we covered that and talked about everything else. So
I'll tell you a couple of things that I've heard. And again, it's very unusual that on October 4th I have not seen the team, okay? Because they've kept it under lock this year. Why is that happening? I don't know. My theory is that Holloway doesn't like what he's seen, really, he feels like these guys aren't ready enough to show them to the world or even just the reporters. No media member has been in their practice at all, which is weird, a little weird. So I can only tell you what I've heard. What I've heard is that he likes Prince Aligbe, that he's going to be a big factor on his team. They like what he brings. They like his leadership off the court. He's played well with preseason for them. So you mentioned him before, Boston College transfer, wing forward. I think he's going to have a pretty big role. And Scotty Middleton has a chance to be the best player on the team. Super talented, played really well at the end of the year at Ohio State last year after like languishing in the beginning. After their coaching change, it seemed like he was much better. Big talent, has a long-standing relationship with Holloway, so I think they're already on the same page, which is a big part of playing for shot. Like you come out of nowhere to play for shot, it's somewhat of a shock. I don't know how many coaches drive their guys as hard as he does. So I think Middleton's a guy who you could have expectations for to make a big splash this year. I'm very high on Isaiah Coleman. I love what I saw from him last year. I think there's a ton of potential there. And if you look at guys who've been with Holloway for 2 years, look how good Kadari Richmond, Dre Davis, and Alamir Dawes were in year 2 under Holloway. The expectation is that Coleman takes that big step forward. And lastly, I've heard that Ade Wusu, who is what he is, but I've heard that he's done pretty well in the leadership category, which is unique, right? Because he's the only returning starter. After he nearly left last year, he went to the portal, came out. That Holloway did not like that. No coach would like that, right? Holloway was not thrilled that that happened. Now, going back to St. Peter's, I know you got to sign off in a minute, but Casey Ndefo, who was probably their best player, he went into the portal before that Elite 8 year. Holloway made him earn his way back on the team, and he wound up being their best player and really the force behind that defense. So will Wusu be a version of that this year? Maybe. So there's some individual guys I've heard things on. Here's what I'll say in closing about Seton Hall. They're intriguing. They're intriguing because they got a lot of bodies. It's a puzzle that could look real nice when it fits, and they got a coach who knows how to make puzzle pieces fit.
It's a mystery box, and there's something fun about that. And what I do know about their mystery box is that Shaheen gave it to me. So just a couple things in that last bit. I really appreciate that last color. When the first two guys you said at the beginning of that piece was Aligbe and Scotty Middleton, and guess what? They're both 6'7". That's the magic. It's the magic number. These 6'6", 6'7" guys. The Drame, the Ndefos, obviously Richmond and Dre Davis, maybe closer to 6'6", but like those are his guys, man. He loves that versatility.
Right.
Scotty Middleton's like, I don't know, if you come from Ohio State and he was productive in limited minutes, like he's coming and he probably sees like, why can't I be the guy for this team? Garway is the guy who, these kids, when they're 18, you don't think they're checking and see their names on NBA mock drafts. He thinks he should be in the league. He saw the way Kadari and Dre Davis, he says, I can be a guy that is that ISO bucket getter for this team. Aligbe was a 4-star recruit in like Boston College. Earl Grant, similar to Shaheen a little bit. I think Prince is a guy that really thinks he can be another one of these valuable hybrid guys. Last thing before I let you get out, this has been awesome, Jerry. These two mid-major transfer guards, Zion Harmon, Chauncey Jenkins, both averaged 16, 15 a game. Neither was super efficient at all. Any buzz you've heard about them, of their ability to play in the Big East, because they are the only guys who average double figure. I mean, Toomey did as well, but from the backcourt, they're the only guys that like have been really productive scorers.
They like what they've seen from Jenkins. Like I think he's going to be a big rotation piece. I'm guessing he'll be one of the top guards off the bench. Harmon's been kind of a mystery, very up and down, mercurial. I think he'll be the backup point guard probably. He'll have his days. I don't know that they'll have a steady diet of him. But like you mentioned, the whole transfer thing, and with these two guys too, this is a last chance hotel for some of these guys. I mean, a lot was expected of them. They didn't thrive at their last program. This is the kind of guy Holloway wants, who knows their back's against the wall, who wants to prove the doubters wrong, wants to show who they really are. And here I am, Coach Holloway. I'm going to get every ounce out of you that your last coach didn't. That's going to be the theme. It's going to be the theme with the two guys you just asked me about, and really all the guys we've talked about, all the newcomers they have. That's going to be the theme. Holloway's like, I'm the guy who can ring the sponge, and these guys are welcoming that because they know what it's like now to be down. And there's something about being hungry, right? You got hungry coach, hungry players, tantalizing possibilities.
I love
Johnson
it.
Jenkins, he's good. I think Seton Hall fans will be decently surprised by him and the Big East overall. I think he's going to be a really good role player.
Yeah, he's definitely going to play. There's no question about it.
There's the Nick stamp of approval. All right, Jerry, you've been awesome. This was really fun. We'll see what happens, but none of us are counting out Sheen Holloway. And like I said, there's a mystery box element here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you again, Jerry. This was awesome.
Thanks for pinning me down, guys. Check back with me again during the season if you want, okay? We'll do it again sometime.
Awesome.